What's up, everybody, and welcome to FPL WildCats Live. Thank you for joining us today on Thursday. No football on at the same time as one of our streams, which is a bit unusual. We do have a special guest. I'm sure you can already see him on the screen, but I will let Nim have the honours of announcing them to you all. But also there are polls in the stream as well, so do make sure to vote on that. We're doing a bit of an end of seasons award stream. So Nim, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. I'm back and welcome everyone to the show, the final Wildcat show of the season. But don't worry, we'll still be pushing FPL streaming boundaries next season, and we'll be back with lots of exciting stuff for you. We're fresh from the Football Blogging Awards. I've got my scarf here, and we'll take this opportunity to say congratulations to Brett for winning the Best Fantasy Football Creator Award.
Thank you.
There is a Wildcats vlog coming very soon, which we'll tell you all much more about it in detail. But for now, let's get on with tonight's show. And as you can see, as Jay said, we do have some guests. FPL Family did our first ever guest cameo at the beginning of the season for us, before we even ever had one live guest on our show. So it seemed only fitting to invite them back live for the final show. Welcome both. How are you?
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
That seems like a long time ago. Oh, you've lost your earbud already? It seems like such a long time ago, doesn't it, that video? Such a long time ago. Thank you for having us, guys. Thank you for having us.
No worries. Are you over the whole Champions League thing yet?
No, we're not over it.
We are definitely not over it. We've just decided this is a hot, off-the-press exclusive. We will not be watching the game together. I think you're going to go to the stadium, aren't you, to watch it on the Jumbotrons, and I'm going to stay here.
I think so, yeah.
That's what we're going to do.
Okay.
It's decided. For the sake of the marriage.
It sounds like a good plan. Well, at the start of all of our shows, we look back on our previous game week. So this week will be no different. So Lee and Sam, would you like to kick us off first with your game week 38 points and so on, please?
You want to go first?
Sure.
Go on, you had a good game week. Go on.
Thanks.
As you do most weeks, to be fair.
Well,
yeah, you had a good season.
Yeah, so I had 75 this week, so that went quite well. Finally, a decent captain pick. Finally. Yeah. Most of them returned. I was really disappointed with Vardy, but other than that, I think the majority of them I was kind of happy with how they did. Meant I finished 26k, so was all right in the end. Could have been a lot better. Props should have been a lot better, but 26k is still good in the grand scheme of it. So
it's very good. It's very good. And I got 54 points, guys. 54, which was a bit average, to be fair. But when I set up for this game week, when I set up for game week 38, I was about 20 points behind you. So I was all about the differentials. I wasn't worried about my overall rank. I just wanted to beat Sam. So on any ordinary game week, I would 100% would have captained Mane. I would have kept Robertson. But I knew that you were going to do both of those things. So I took Robertson out for Bertrand, which is home to Huddersfield. Come on. Got to get a clean sheet home to Huddersfield. And it was only an Angus Gunn mistake, which actually Bertrand was part of. So I can't really complain. That got Huddersfield the goal. And then I captained Salah. I bought Salah in with the money that I gained from doing Robbo to Bertrand. Because I just thought, well, you're not going to bring Salah in. And you never know. Liverpool might do it on the last day. Salah rested, well, not rested, but didn't play against Barcelona. So I thought, well, there's a pretty good chance he's going to get something. So it didn't work out. So I ended up with about 68k overall rank, which I was, given the way that my season's gone, it's been a bit topsy-turvy. And it's been a bit, down in the 300ks every now and again. So to finish on 68k, I'm all right with that. So it was only really Mane and my boy Trent Alexander-Arnold, who has been sensational, absolutely sensational this season, that brought home any points for me. So yeah, 54.
And 50 points behind me.
Ended up 50 points behind you.
Just leave that one in there.
Yeah.
Just leave that there.
Yeah. What is that? 2-0 now. Two seasons of FPL Family, 2-0 to you. Goodness me, I've got to claw it back.
Life always wins.
On that note, I'll head on over to Kurt. Kurt, how did you get on in game week 38?
Weirdly, I had a good game week. And that's something I haven't said much this season. And rather weirdly, looking back, my best 2 game weeks in terms of against the average points has been game week 19, so just on the halfway point, and game week 38, just at the end, which is quite bizarre. And another weird thing is that I had a massive stroke of luck, something that I haven't had a single bit of this season. I decided, still am a triple captain, I thought, my rank is atrocious. I'm just outside 2 million. I thought, why not insert myself into the 2 million with a really stupid decision? So I triple captained Shaqiri, who I've never celebrated someone not coming off the bench more, because my vice captain
You
was
lucked
Laporte,
out there.
who has 8
massively.
points, scored a goal, 24 points in the end. So that was a nice stroke of luck. Aubameyang was in, who did a decent point scoring return of 13. I had Mane as well. Sterling got an assist. Gundogan had a good game as well on 9 points. Pereira on 9 points. Murray got 6. Apart from the Man United flop, which after the Huddersfield 1-1, I probably should have seen coming, I ended up on 86 points. It's just a shame that I couldn't do this earlier on in the season, but a very, very good game week, and it's a relief. I finished just outside 1.5 million, and I'm quite impressed with how I've finished, which, looking at my rank, considering how I've done in the last 3 years, I really shouldn't be. But it's been a bad season. We've got to move on. But a good game week to end it.
Yeah, it's always good to end on a positive note. So go on then, our reward winner, Brett. How did you get on?
I did okay. So I got 61 points this week. And I think, I was trying to push into the top 20K. That was kind of my target. At the start of the season, I would have loved top 10K, obviously. But 61. And I think around about the top 10K, 20K, that was kind of the average, So I didn't really make any gains on 61. So I started the week on 21K and then finished at 22K. So just a small red arrow for the final week. However, my personal best on FPL was 26K. So the biggest goal was just don't bottle it and drop 5,000 places, basically. So it was a personal best this season, so I can't really argue with that. And the transfer I made was obviously the red card for Son, and it was between Paul Pogba, Bernardo Silva, or Nathan Redmond to come in. And luckily, I picked Redmond. And if I had picked Pogba or Bernardo Silva, I may have dropped out of my personal best there, because there's an 8-point difference in what that would have given me. So a 1 in 3 chance, and luckily I made the right choice with Redmond. So like Lee said, obviously I've had Trent for a while now, and another 15 points from him, superb. Mane, another 15 points from him. I captained Salah this week. I thought, it's quite a rare occasion for Salah to be more of a differential than we're used to, and lots of managers sold him on the wild card in like game week 34. So I thought this is an opportunity to captain Salah when not as many as we're used to will, and unfortunately that didn't pay off. So if he had got a goal or two, and if Trent's cross had gone to him instead of Mane just next to him, it could have might have pushed the top 15 or 20K there. But disappointing for Salah to blank, but overall, I'm happy to get the personal best. And obviously I had Rashford and Shane Long up front against Cardiff and Huddersfield, 3 points between them. That was pretty disappointing. But 61 points and pretty happy to beat the personal best.
Yeah, can't say fairer than that. And Jay, how did you get on?
This is going to be where I sound really dejected, but you're all going to be like, what are you so upset about?
I've been saying that to you most of this season.
I got 82 points, but it was a -4 down to 78.
Terrible score, Jay. What's going on?
I know.
Get the violin.
The reason I'm so disappointed is because my final overall rank was 10,228, which is the second time I've just been outside the top 10K. So it's just like, I was at around 14K and I was like, you know what, I'll just take any sort of rise. But I just didn't expect to get so close and not quite reach it. I think I'd have preferred to just stay around 14K, to be honest. But I had Mane as captain. Probably in the grand scheme of things, next year I'll be like, I'm quite happy with that. But right now it's just a bit gutting.
I'm just looking for some violin emojis in the chat, but I don't know if you can do that.
Yeah, damn it, I had a high rank. I had Mane as captain, which of course paid off, and Trent Alexander-Arnold, ever since I brought him in, he's been on absolute fire. The place where I could have maybe made that difference up of 228 is I went on Arnautovic and Wilson for Jimenez and Firmino, and the other person I was thinking about was Zaha. And I didn't go Zaha, even though I was very tempted midweek. And Wilson did what Wilson does, which is when you think he might score some goals, especially in a high-scoring game, 5-3, he doesn't get any points. But other than that, good end to the season. Sterling got on the board. Deulofeu was gifted a goal by West Ham. Aguero scored. Laporte has been absolutely fantastic for me.
Yeah, that was annoying.
Yeah, I don't think I can complain really, but I still somehow managed to.
Yeah, you have indeed. Well, I finished off on quite a high, thankfully, with 80 points. So that was a big green arrow for me. Unfortunately, game week 36 and 37 had already dented my rank quite badly, so that I finished 160,350th overall. Now, quite happy with this, oddly, believe it or not, because before doing content creating, I never even focused on OR at all. I didn't even know it was a thing, to be honest with you guys, which I know sounds stupid to you lot, but I didn't even know people competed or cared or anything like that at all. So it was all about winning my mini leagues as far as I was concerned. Unfortunately, I did get much higher ranked when I was concentrating on just that, not on all of this OR stuff. So last season, the first season, I really concentrated on it, and that was a bad season for me with all the personal stuff going on. So I finished around 518k last season. So this actually feels okay. It's not.
Improvement.
Yeah, it's not brilliant, but it's over half that, and I feel like I'm on the right track, and I've learned lots of stuff. And as I always say, I'm here for the fun of the journey, whether it's good or bad. Either way, I hope it's entertaining for all of you guys. So yeah, I've definitely done a lot of batch shizzle crazy stuff this season, and again, game week 38 was no different. I took a -8. I thought, why the hell not? So last game week, I may as well go for it. It did pay off. I got a hat trick of 15 points from Trent, Shah, and Mane.
Yeah, Shah was a genius move, by the way.
Thank you.
You deserve credit for that, because they were away to Fulham. Were they away to Fulham? Away from home, and Fulham had been in decent form.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of home teams you could have gone for. You could have gone for a Valerie or a Bertrand, or something at home to Huddersfield or United even. Yep. But to go for Shah, who hadn't scored for quite a few weeks, away from home, to get 15 points, I thought that was a genius move, because I would never have even made that consideration. So fair play.
Thank you. Well, I would never have got rid of Robbo if it wasn't for the fact that, like yourself and like Lee, I really wanted Salah for the last game week. I just really fancied him with the golden boot and, and things like that. So I needed to make space for another Liverpool player, and Robbo was the fall guy for that. I guess it's the only time I've sold him all season. But I couldn't go for another Southampton because I had 3 Southampton already. But just something drew me about Newcastle. I did go into a bit more detail in my video, so go check that out. Little plug there. But those 3 did quite well for me. And then I triple captained Aguero for the fun of it. I had to. It's Aguero. So they were my big hits for the week. And I'm just happy that, finished with all green arrows, really, apart from the Streamers and Bloggers League, I think. So pretty happy with that.
It's a tough league, that one.
Yeah, that's
really tough.
Not an easy one, that one. Okay, now before we get on with our questions, we have structured the rest of the stream a bit like an award ceremony. So make sure you check out our polls and vote, as the guys have said earlier. Those players who are picked by our panel tonight, and I'll throw out our personal awards in between our live chat question. So talking of which, Brett, do we have any live chat questions?
Yeah, there's one here. I mean, because it's the end of the season, the questions aren't coming in like they normally do, but I'm interested to see what you guys think, how we can do this. So Jeff Holt wants us to put together a team of players of the season that aren't in the top 6. So maybe it's difficult for us to put together a team of 11, but maybe we could just go round and maybe pick one player each out of the top 6 that we think should be player, in team of the year, basically. So anyone want to go first? Jay, is there a player outside the top 6 that you think should be in team of the season?
Oh, now I've got to pick out the full 11 that I picked.
I've already got 11. Fair play.
I mean, I think Wan-Bissaka definitely deserves a shout for being such a budget enabler overall, and especially near the beginning of the season, he quite often popped up with clean sheets and bonus points when they were much needed, when everyone was trying to figure out what sides they were going for. So I think in defence, I would definitely go with Wan-Bissaka. I know there were players that scored more, but I just think at that price point he started at, he's definitely worth a shout. In midfield, I think Fraser probably just stands out for me above a few other good budget options. I know his points were a bit here and there, but when he did score, he often hauled. And then up front, I'd have to go Vardy. I know there are some very obvious strikers, but I think for a certain period of time, ever since Brendan Rodgers came in, Vardy was so reliable. So I think I'd go with Vardy up front.
Yeah, fair play. What do you reckon, Kurt? Any players outside the top 6 that are team of the season worthy?
One that I think probably deserves a mention that won't get a mention, or probably won't get mentioned by a lot of people is, and probably not me if I hadn't looked at the points, is Gylfi Sigurdsson, which is one that I keep on forgetting about this season. He scored 5 points in the last game week for an assist and 2 draw against Spurs. That got him 182 points, which beats his previous best total in a season by 1 point. 13 goals, 6 assists, and it surprised me because he's sort of flown under the radar, not really having many people known about him. 8.3% ownership as he ends the season, and he's the 5th highest scoring midfielder.
Yeah, it's the exact one that I was going to say.
I deliberately tried to not say Siggy because I thought everyone would say him.
Yeah, him or I won't say Milivojevic. That'll be next season's. A little bit of foreshadowing. Maybe Digne as well for Everton. He could be classed a bit of a troll player. I mean, he had everyone on, and I'm sure everyone got confused and a bit hurt by not 1 but 2 -1s in the season. And up front, there's a lot of you can go for, but probably Jimenez. I mean, he shocked everyone
definitely.
For me.
Yeah, definitely, Kurt. What about you, family? Any other players outside the top 6 that you think are worthy of team of the season?
Well, I think you guys have shouted most of them out. I love the Wan-Bissaka shout from Jay because at the beginning of the season, he was like, every season we look for that 4.0 defender that's just going to fill that 5th slot. And if they get 2 points a game, if they're even playing, that's good. He's straight in everybody's teams. Whereas Wan-Bissaka came in, got forward, got assists, played more or less 90 minutes most games, and was really good. So it's a bit of a BPS magnet. So Wan-Bissaka definitely for me. Digne I like as well. But I want to shout out David Brooks from Bournemouth because he was a bit of an unknown coming into the season. I think we'd all kind of heard that Bournemouth had signed this player and we didn't know too much about him. But he's really hit the ground running, actually. For a young player, these guys often take a bit of time to get up to speed. And I must admit, when I first saw him playing, I thought, he looks a bit lightweight. Maybe he's not going to be physically right for the Premier League. But I think he proved me wrong. I think he's proved a lot of people wrong. He was really part of that Bournemouth dynamic. And I think you could really pick, Fraser, Wilson, King, Brooks, all of those guys all had a really, really good season. Bournemouth going forward are really, really good.
Matt Doherty for me has been brilliant this season. I know that Wolves haven't kept as many clean sheets as potentially we would have liked for a defender, but that guy, even when he doesn't keep a clean sheet, he just guaranteed to pop up with something, whether it's an assist or whatever it is, and he's been brilliant for me this season. And also Foster in goal at Watford, I think he's been a really good pick this season. Nice budget keeper who didn't break the bank. You could afford to have him, and he's got a few nice hauls over the course of the season.
He and Fabianski, I think, were not only rotated well over the course of the season, but Fabianski was by far and away the most saves in the league.
Points, yeah.
And I know Alisson is going to get all the plaudits and he got the golden gloves and all the rest of it, but if Fabianski was playing behind a half-decent defence, he would surely be wiping the floor with every other goalkeeper because the save points from that guy is absolutely unreal. So, Foster definitely, but Fabianski gets a shout from me as well.
Yeah, and actually I'd shout out Pickford because he was 3rd highest in the goalkeepers for FPL, 4.9, 13.9%, 13.3% owned. So, he did really well. I think he got 14 clean sheets altogether. So he's definitely one, I guess, as Kurt was saying with Digne, that's maybe gone a little bit under the radar, because of Everton really just not being a team that we can focus on. I think a lot of that might have just been to do with their fixtures the later half of the season, because I know we were all looking at kind of Richarlisons and Walcotts earlier on in the season, weren't we? But as the season's gone on, I think maybe just their run of fixtures and other people have just kind of taken over the limelight from them, really, haven't they? Yet they've just kind of been chugging away of the Everton players.
I like the Pickford shout though, because I think he saved 3 penalties as well this season. So if there's a goalkeeper that likes a penalty save, he's one that we should have for next season, right? Because VAR is
yes.
VAR is going to change the game next year. I don't know how, but it's going to fundamentally change the game. And any keeper like an Etheridge, who's going to get the opportunity to save a lot. Well, not Etheridge, not next season, but Pickford. He's potentially going to get the opportunity to save a few pens. He saved 3 this year, proves that he can do it. I fancy him for a bit of a price hike actually next season, probably maybe a 5-5.
Yeah.
That's the thing. There's always, at the start of this season, just gone. I was trying to decide whether to go for a budget goalkeeper or do a set and forget and look at Edison, for example. And when you look at the goalkeeper points from the previous year, which is what I was trying to do, Edison had maybe 10 or 15 points more than Fabianski. So I was like, well, is it worth spending that extra million for the sake of 15 points, And it's the same again, like Pickford, like you say, has got 161 points this year, and Edison's got 169. So it's only 8 points difference. But it's just knowing which of the budget ones to go for, which is trying to predict which one will have that kind of season again, and you can't predict the penalty saves, but there is always 1 or 2 budget keepers that do get the same points as one of the big guns, and Edison and Alisson, their defense of City and Liverpool have been so good, they might even be 6 million next year, like De Gea.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So, and Foster's a good shout too, because I was doing a bit of research about keepers and defences and stuff for the final game week. Watford have conceded the second most big chances of any team this season, so more than Huddersfield. They only conceded less big chances than Fulham, yet they conceded like 15 to 20 goals less than those teams. So therefore, Foster, that suggests that Foster's maybe made a couple of big saves there, so... so, we've got Wan-Bissaka, Doherty, Digne. I can't disagree with any of those. Fraser, Sigurdsson, Jimenez and Vardy up front, maybe. I think Diogo Jota as well. Wolves have just been so good, haven't they? So to finish 7th, they've got such a talented young squad. Their performances against the Big Six they've done it the hard way. Huddersfield did the double on them, and they sort of beat all the top 6 or got a lot of points from the top 6. So, obviously Jota was popular at the start of the season, didn't quite deliver, was out of favour a little bit. Helder Costa was coming in and that kind of thing. But once they changed the system, it's just been a beast really in both competitions, in the FA Cup as well. So,
Duffy may be worth a mention. 5 goals, 2 assists this season. A bit of a troll with double game week, which did hurt me personally, but relatively consistent throughout. It's not bad really for a defender to score, or centre back as well to score 5 goals.
Yeah, his attacking threat was definitely there. A lot of penalty area touches. From a fantasy perspective, he was definitely an appealing one for his price.
Did any of you guys go for the triple captain bandwagon a few weeks back?
No, I didn't actually.
I captained him. I didn't triple captain him. I'm glad. I'm very glad.
That's for me. Got to be. If there's an award for bandwagon of the year, that's got to be it, isn't it? There was so much on Twitter about, I'm triple captaining Duffy because he's basically got 2 really nice fixtures at home. And what did he get? 2 points or something, wasn't it?
It's almost as bad as the Sané triple captain one on the double game week.
Just got that out of my head, Nim.
Sorry, dude. But yeah, I think Crystal Palace is definitely worth a mention. So Gaeta came out of nowhere, didn't he, really, towards the end of the season. Townsend and Zaha, obviously, one that was mentioned earlier, and Batshuayi as well. In the last 2 game weeks, went a bit nuts there, didn't he, with his 3 goals in 2 games. So they're all worth a mention as well, I think, for sure.
I'll give a shout out to Rondon as well. I know that he's a bit kind of. We're a bit tongue in cheek at FPL family here, aren't we, with Rondon?
Jammy pick.
He's one of those jammy picks that we like to call out.
It's no longer just jammy; he's a hero now. He's a legend.
You think about Newcastle. Newcastle at the beginning of the season, they got rid of, reluctantly, I think, sold Mitrovic for a fair few quid to Fulham, and all the fans were a bit down in the dumps, and they got Rondon in on a free or maybe a loan. I think he's maybe on loan. Yeah. And he's properly done the business, hasn't he, Rondon?
He and Perez together have been great.
Yeah, and I think certainly with the addition of Almiron as well, there's a trio to really look out for next season, in my opinion. Almiron,
if Rondon's there.
If he's there, if he's there. But Almiron looked really promising. So without actually getting many FPL points, so I'll be interested to see what Newcastle's fixtures look like at the beginning of the season.
I love how everyone was like, he's going to be the next big thing, and did absolutely nothing.
The thing
in
is, though,
FPL
he freed up a Josie Perez so much, though.
Exactly.
So
Really
it's just everyone looked at Almiron, they should have looked at Perez.
The talk is that, potentially Perez could be reclassed as a midfielder. I don't know how likely that is, but I've seen some people talking about that, which would make it more appealing. And obviously Matt Ritchie as well. If he gets reclassified as a defender, potentially, if he's playing as a wing back, that could be quite tempting as well. So some things to keep an eye on from Newcastle there.
Cool. We do have a question here from Twitter. And in a few sentences, at Elite FPL Stevo, from FPL Elite, I'm assuming, has asked us to say, what have we learned from this season? For instance, in his case, he would like to play a bit more cautiously with his captain picks. So, family, what have you learned this season?
What have we learned? Do you want to go first, or I've got one for this?
Go on, you go first.
So I've really learned the importance of a decent chip strategy. So last season, I think I had an okay chip strategy, and I kind of played them at kind of the same times as everybody else. But this year, I put so much thought and effort into when I was going to play the chips, which players were going to come in and out, and at the start of the chip. I want to call it chip season, but you know what I mean. It's like game week 30 or 31, wasn't it? It's the start of chip season. And I was in the lowly sort of 250, 260k, something like that. And I played my chips, and I had a plan. I sort of stuck to it, and I thought, well, I'm getting this player here and this player here. And every transfer was kind of precious. And I got to the end of chip season, which was like game week 35 or something. And I'd got up into the sort of like 70, 80k.
Yeah.
So the chips for me, and I know there's some people really like them, some don't. I get that. But I really do like them. I think it really adds a different dynamic, particularly towards the end of the season when teams are starting to become a bit more template. The chips, I think, have really added to the game, and for me, that's my big learning point was have a real solid chip strategy. They definitely make a difference if you play them well, and if you don't and you waste them, then potentially you take a bit of a hit because everybody else is playing them well.
I think going on from that, there's with a couple of the chips, I think there's kind of there's benefits for not using them in the chip window, if we're calling it that now. Like the triple captain, for example, I think if you look at the statistics behind when people played the triple captain and who did well out of it, those that played it on single game weekers probably did better.
That's the hardest one to play, though, right?
Triple captain is but also, if you look at the statistics on the second wild card, if you play it earlier, so the statistics show if you play it January, February time, you do better out of it points-wise over the course of the rest of the season. Now, for me, I've always held it to deal with, the come down from the double game weeks and the single game weeks and all of that kind of stuff. But next season, I'm seriously pondering playing it earlier, sort of in that post-Christmas period. And I think partly it all depends on where we are with the cup fixtures and that kind of stuff, and it's taking an educated gamble, isn't it, as to who's going to make it through the rounds of the cup and who's likely to get singles and doubles. But there are statistics to support using the wild card earlier. But for me, it's a captain thing. FPL Elite, it's just gone really badly with me with captains this year, like really badly. Genuinely didn't captain my highest scoring player until game week 38.
Can't be that bad. 25k. Come on.
But if you think about how my season has gone, had I captained my highest paying scorer every week, I would be a lot higher than 26k. So that for me is something that I have to get right next year. And I should pick some more of my jammy picks because they've been brilliant this year. So we should play them.
The jammy picks have been all right, haven't they, to be fair? Yeah.
Cool. Jay, what have you learnt this season?
I think my biggest one would be to ignore speculation on Twitter from about Thursday onwards, because the amount of times I changed my mind because of something I saw on Twitter, and sometimes it'd be little things from not captaining a player, and I'd captain someone else, and then that player would actually come in and score big. And the one time I did ignore it was right at the beginning of the season with Aguero. There was this whole thing about Aguero not starting, and I captained him, and he scored really big, and because of that, he was a big differential. But then Mane in game week 31, I was adamant I was bringing him in. I was adamant I was going to captain him, and then suddenly he's not seen in training pictures, And
Oh gosh.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that.
Training
So-
picture fiasco.
But then I suppose at the end of the season, everyone's saying Firmino's out injured, and I still kept him for 2 more game weeks because I'm like, maybe it's happening again. And it clearly this time I should have listened. It was a more reputable source though that time, so maybe I should have listened. But yeah, who knows?
Jay, what was the week with Jamie Jackson? When was he? When was that?
That was
whole
Aguero.
thing?
That was
That was
it was an
game week
early
2,
game
wasn't
week.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, game week 2 that was.
Oh, that guy alienated a lot of it managers that week, I can tell you.
And then
There
I
was
suppose
no way I was not Captain Aguero. I was like, I don't care who this Jamie fella is, I'm going to
Well,
anyway.
if I'd heard about him before, I may have listened to him, but I was just like, I don't know who this guy is. So
Yeah, sure. Brett, what have you learnt this season?
I think I've learned to try and identify a momentum shift in a team quicker than I have, if that makes sense. So the 2 in particular, and I know it's easy when a new manager takes over and you expect that bounce. And United got that with Solskjaer at the beginning, and Leicester got it with Rodgers. And on both occasions, I missed a lot of Vardy's earlier hauls as soon as he took over. And notably, the biggest regret this season, I know Pogba was very frustrating at the end of the season, but when Solskjaer first took over, Pogba had like an 18-point, 15-point, 13-point game weeks, like 3 on the trot. And I missed all 3. And I had this problem with, I missed Pogba's first haul of like 18 points. I think he got like 3 assists or something like that. And maybe got a 15-pointer or something. And then I've got this problem where I'm like, oh, I've missed the haul now. I'm not going to get him. I've missed the haul. That's it. He's not going to do it again. He's not going to do it again. You know? And then it keeps happening. And I'm like, and then I bring them in too late. And it happened with me, with Pogba, with Vardy. I did get points out of Vardy, but still I missed an opportunity to get even more from him, and Son as well, because, you know, Son was in great form and showing all the signs of playing well. Kane was out. He got like, you know, a 20-pointer. And for some reason I was like, okay, he's not going to keep that up. And he just kept on going. And for some reason I just refused to accept defeat and bring them in, sort of thing, until it was too late. And then I'd bring them in when probably there were signs that they were starting to regress, you know, but I was like, oh, I'm tired of not having this player now. I'm just going to get them in to save me the headache. When really, does that make sense? You know, just getting on players too late, really, not reacting quick enough to a momentum shift with teams.
And Kurt, have you learned anything this season apart from not to do anything?
Yeah,
you did
apart from not playing next season.
Buy Salah. That's what you learned.
I couldn't ever buy Salah.
Hang on. That's
I've made my bed.
Told us after a few bevies. I'm sure there was a pinky promise in there somewhere.
I'd love to say I remember, not that I endorse that sort of thing, but unfortunately I couldn't tell you. But
if there's no camera footage, it never happened.
Exactly.
Correct.
I think me and Brett vetoed it anyway for the sake of all Salah out there. I think we said we'll forget this one in the morning. It didn't.
No, a big problem I've had this season and last season especially as well, is similar to Brett's, is that I'll look at players as their original price. So for Doherty, I think he started at 5, didn't he? Or 4.5.
4.5.
Something like that. And if they start doing well, they go up 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. I look at that and think, oh, they're overpriced now. And I just don't get them in. And then they keep on scoring. And I worry about price far too much. And that has caused me so many headaches. I could have, you know, so many times I could have got players like Doherty and like Jimenez, like Jota, but thought, you know, they're a bit too overpriced now. They're a bit too over the top. So I'm going to get someone who's naturally at that price. And obviously, that person who's naturally at that price hasn't scored many points this season. And owned by him.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying there, Kurt.
So that's my major problem. Next season, I'm going to chuck that out of the metaphorical window and think, right, go back to basics. If they're doing well, they're in form, and they've got a few good fixtures coming up. Doesn't matter what their base price was and their price is now. Just get them in.
As long
and
as
hopefully I'll be higher than 1.5 million.
What price will Salah have to be, Kurt, for you to get him?
6.
6 mil, yeah.
3.2 million, and I'll do it.
4.0 bench fodder.
few more seasons. Yeah, I think on that one. Oh, this is a great one for me because I feel like I've learned a lot. I think the main thing is really just to follow my gut more, because there's been times this season where I've really called some really great calls, but I haven't listened to my own advice quite a lot. And I sometimes have found coming into the content creating thing a little bit kind of overwhelming, I think. I tend to look at a lot of other people as I don't know, better off, I guess. They've got great histories or big ORs, and there's a lot of really big accounts out there. And when I'm struggling, and I tend to kind of go there and hope that they'll have the answer because they've done so well in previous seasons. And it's not to say that sometimes they haven't, because they definitely have, but then other times as well, maybe if I'd just gone away, I think, had a chat to my mates like I used to, or just really just formulated a bit of my own plan, I probably would have just come up with possibly a better solution for my team. And I just think I need to go back to kind of listening to my gut and not getting confused by so much information, because it is difficult when you're so confused and you don't know what to do in a game week. There's just so much information available now that suddenly, where you would think, right, in your head, if you just could only look at it yourself and nobody else, there'd maybe be two players you'd think, okay, I'm choosing out of those two now, that they're the ones I want. Just get one of those. Don't even think about it. Don't complicate it. But then you go on Twitter and there's this differential of the week, and this person's got this many goals and this many assists in so many weeks, and it can just be a bit of kind of information overload for sure. So I just want to kind of go back to my gut, and I think I did do that a couple of times more towards the end of the season. For instance, the Sharp, it was definitely kind of I knew I wanted a Newcastle defender. I was between Lascelles and Shah, and then I went onto Twitter, and then I went onto the internet and started looking at the information on the two of them. And I spoke to a few people I knew who knew about Newcastle, and then I went with my gut out of getting all of the information. I think that's more how I would like to play it next season for sure, doing it that way, having the gut feel first and then going on to, the sites and Twitters and YouTubes and all of that, and then kind of getting back up, I guess, for that, I'm making sure that they're going to play and all of those sorts of things with injury news, and because obviously we need to make sure that's going to, but as Jay said, be careful who you listen to or who's actually going to play or not.
That's the thing. When we're so involved in the Twitter community like we are, it's very, you can tell yourself you're making your own decisions, but as soon as you load up Twitter and a player comes up, the seed has been planted. And, it's like you might tell yourself you were considering that player, but if you hadn't have loaded up Twitter, you may not have even gone there. Do you know what I mean? So it's almost like, I don't know, at the start of next season, when the game launches, I might maybe take 2 days without any Twitter and just build a team and see what I can come up with myself, and maybe see how that differs to Twitter then. Because once you load it up and you see a player, you might tell yourself it was your own decision, but it's been planted in your mind,
Yeah,
I remember telling Lee in one of the streams to get Mkhitaryan in the week he went nuts, and I could have done that myself, but I didn't do it. Do you know what I mean? It's things like that. That was obviously my gut feel for the week, but I didn't listen to it. I'm telling you to do it, but I didn't listen to it myself.
That's the tricky thing too. It's that fear to, especially if you're creating content for other people.
Yeah.
You almost don't want to make a move that seems so out there. You don't want to get ridiculed, and I'm not saying I have loads of examples for me this season where I plucked out like a genius pick, but in my mind, I was considering Ryan Babel for a few weeks, and I thought, well, I can't possibly discuss him in my video, because people would be like, hang on a minute, like Fulham are in such bad form.
What are you doing, mate?
Yeah, there's almost that fear that you're going to get ridiculed for doing something so out there, and that can be tricky sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Do we have any questions in the chat?
Yes. Simon in the chat. says went from around 40k to over 1 million. So he must have been ranked at 40k and then dropped to over 1 million in the last few game weeks. So I had a bit of a mare by the sounds of it. He said, even Lee caught me. With a big exclamation.
Blimey.
He wants to know what our worst mistakes are. Is there any particular mistake? So obviously with Simon mentioning you, Lee, is there a particular mistake you made this season that comes to mind?
This was one of our FPL personal awards, actually, so we can go for that now.
I can think of one particularly, not my finest moment, when there's probably loads, actually. I'm sure Simon can come up with a whole book of poor Lee from FPL Family moments. But one of the poorest moments this season was when so I had Richarlison in my team. Richarlison doing pretty well, doing okay, and then I think he either got injured or he headbutted somebody, didn't he? And he got suspended. I think it was a headbutt. He gets suspended for a couple of games. And that week we went on the FPL show, and I sat there and I just went, well, it's the same price as Walcott. He's in the same team. Everton are playing well. Walcott is just a no-brainer. And I just sat there, and even as I was sitting there saying it, I just thought, that's a complete no-brainer. And on the way home, we drove home, I just done it on my phone. I was like, yeah, Richarlison to Walcott. What a great transfer that is. What an awful transfer that was.
The no-brainer was into Son, but everyone else did.
Yeah, pretty much everybody else was doing something else. But I said, Richarlison, now that he's done his headbutt to Walcott, was a no-brainer, and that was, and I don't know when that was. That was fairly early on, I think.
Yeah. He had Huddersfield and another nice fixture on paper, wasn't he? It was Huddersfield and someone else. Yeah.
So everything's fixtures looked really good. So I was really annoyed that I'd lost somebody in good form like Richarlison with those fixtures coming up. So I was like, well, I'll do a direct replacement then, but. Yeah, didn't go well, did it? It didn't go well. Walcott was absolutely terrible.
Sam, what was your mistake of the season?
I think the Sun one bit me at the beginning, because I kept saying I don't want to get Sun because he's going off to the Asian Games. I don't want to get Sun because he's going to the Asian Games. Like, it's a transfer that's going to cause another transfer. I don't want to do that. So that was one early on in the season. But then, as Jay said earlier, like the Firmino for those couple, brought him in for a hit, was injured for 2 game weeks. It's just like.
I'd totally forgotten about that Son at the Asian Games. That threw everybody. I was the same. I was just like, I'm not getting him in because he's going to the Asian Games. I'm not getting him in. And week after week, it was like double-digit hauls, wasn't it? And then he came back from the Asian Games.
I had faith in Sonny.
I had Son as well. I was like, he's not that confident.
Mine has to be selling Wilson before his brace. Thanks, Monkey. If you know, you know. He pretty much convinced me a couple of times this season to make some certain transfers, and I listened to him, and that was one of them. So I was, it was like, it's time to get on Jimenez now, Nim. You haven't been on Jimenez. You need to get on Jimenez. Get off Wilson and get on Jimenez. And I was like, really? I'm not sure. Maybe one more week. He's like, no, now's the time. So off he went, and Wilson scores a brace, and I was like, Wilson!
Wilson gonna Wilson. Oh my God, what a troll.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Kurt, mistake of the season. Not buying Salah?
No, 13 million. I still stand by it. It was too expensive for the whole season for considering what you got. Standing firm now. All jokes aside.
Golden boot. Come on.
Well, Mane also scored the same amount of goals, didn't he?
It's true. It's true.
Absolutely.
So, that's my only argument. No, I've made a lot of mistakes, starting from game week 1, continuing to game week 38. Lots of them, really, when I think about it. But it's just, oh jeez. It's the price thing I mentioned that I'm going to do different next year. It's just looking at people that have gone up 0.2, 0.3, not going with them, and seeing Jimenez going up to like 1.4. It's that sort of thing. Those are massive mistakes, and they cost me so many points. And in the end, I got people in that weren't performing and didn't perform. So, that's got to go down as my mistake of the season. Cumulative.
Yeah. And Brett?
Yeah, just jotting them down actually.
Oh, he's an award winner now. He doesn't have to pay attention to the stream.
No, I've just got too many mistakes to note here. So yeah, the first one I guess would be with Wilson as well, Nim. But for me, it was my own doing. You know, I was saying to Jay the other day, like I've called Callum Wilson a troll this season, but actually it's my own fault because I've chopped and changed him. I've benched him at certain games. I've brought him in and then he's blanked and I've taken him back out again and then he's punished me. If I had just kept him and not worried about benching him and transferring him, I would have reaped the rewards there. So yeah, for when a player like Wilson can be very explosive, I think I need to stop overthinking it because I bring him in for the home game against Fulham. He blanked, and then I was kind of like, oh, well, he's away the next fixture, and then he got 16 points, you know, and I've benched him a couple of times, and he's got goals as well. So next season, when I have a striker like that, overall, I think it's about looking at like the points per game rather than like, yeah, maybe he blanks 2 games in a row, but if he gets 16 points in the next fixture, that's 20 points over 3 game weeks, and that's actually a really good average then, you know. And that's what Fraser and Wilson have done all season. They might blank, but then they get 16 to 20 points in one game, and it makes up for all the blanks, you know. So sticking by players that have that potential for sure is what I need to do next year, and that's what I haven't done this season. The next one, basically, towards the beginning of the season, maybe 10 game weeks in, I found myself with Salah, Raheem Sterling, and Hazard, 3 big hitters in midfield. And for some reason, I was like, I almost felt wrong that I had so much invested in 3 players in midfield that I was like, well, I'm going to have to get rid of one of these soon. And looking at Mark Southern's team, for example, he just kept all 3 for almost the entire season. And, you know, he finished almost in the top 1,000. And just trying to pick between those 3, because they were all so explosive this year, was almost impossible. I should have just kept all 3 of them, you know. I'm annoyed because I then did the hokey cokey with Hazard and Sterling so many times, and you know, and I just missed on so many holes there. So I think when 3 players are playing well, granted it was a lot of money, but I didn't have to switch it to up front. I could have lasted with Jimenez, Wilson. There was a lot of good value Rondon up front, you know. So yeah, my mistake this year was kind of telling myself I have to drop one of these midfielders and then missing a lot of hauls from them.
Cool. Jay?
Well, I was going to go with transferring out Salah with my wild card in Gameweek 32 because there was so much pressure to get that. To be honest, in Gameweek 38 it did pay off for me, but that was the only time it felt like it paid off.
Yeah.
But going to what Lee said, Richarlison, I was adamant for the first 2 game weeks not to bring him in. It's a fluke. He's not going to keep scoring those points. Then, of course, I caved. I caved in game week 3, brought him in. He gets sent off.
Just in time for the headbutt.
And then guess who I transferred in? Walcott.
Oh, you didn't let him in.
Don't ever listen to what I do.
I'm going to say, it seemed like a no-brainer at the time. It did. But yeah, I think I've had to change my answer now. I think that has to be a mistake of the season.
Brilliant. Cool. Well, we may as well go for some of the other personal awards as well then while we're here. So, what was your game week of the season? I'm going to throw this one to Kurt first. What was your game week of the season?
Simple for me. I'll just scroll across and grab it on the screen. But 96 points. It was easily my best. Well, there was no denying it. It was my best game week of the season. But I had no way of continuing that success. I think the next game week I was about 15 points below the average, which was not good. But yeah, game week 19 I got 96 points. Just going to scroll across to see what I got. And it was just a load of luck coming in. I think my midfield, one of my mistakes actually, to go back to it, keeping Sane for so long. He was atrocious this season. But I had a midfield of Son, who scored 13 points, captain's 26. Felipe Anderson doing something for once, 15. Hazard on 15. Pogba on 15. Aubameyang on 8. I had Wan-Bissaka, one of the enablers, scoring 8 points. And everything just seems to pay off. And that actually, I'll have to come back to this game week because it was also a decision of the season as well, but I'll go into that in a bit more depth later on. But yeah, easily my best game week. And the game week after that, I got 48 points. So crashing back down to earth, half the score.
Jay, what was your best game week of the season?
Well, it wasn't my highest scoring because that was game week 35, but it was actually game week 10 where I managed to get 96 points, which for that time of the season, I don't think I'd generally get near 100 points that early. I had Matt Ryan for the period where he was getting quite a few clean sheets and saves. Alonso was there when he was actually doing something. Mo Salah had the captain armband, a goal and 2 assists. Pereira during his vein of form, which was very shortly lived. And of course, the favourite double act of Wilson and Fraser, both turning up in that fixture and getting quite a few points. So game week 10, even though I've, to be honest, forgotten about it until I read that question, it's probably the best game week of the season.
Awesome. And Brett?
Yeah, there's a couple. I'll bomb through really quick. Game week 5 was a really good one for me because I played my wild card early in game week 4, and then for game week 5 I had Fraser and Hazard who got 38 points between them. And because I played my wild card early, I kind of played it in like an attacking move. And then maybe game week 6, game week 7, I saw lots of people using their wild card to bring in the players I already had, and it was sort of like, wow, I'm ahead of the game here. You know, I was at 10k at the time. And to see people using their wild cards to bring in players that I already owned, it was like I've already had that wild card team now. I've got the template before everyone had it at that point, you know?
Yeah.
The other game week was when Salah got the hat-trick against Bournemouth, I think in the early kickoff. So I captained him. And obviously when you get a plum captain choice, I didn't get many like that this season. But for Salah to get 21 points on his own and captain him, that was pretty epic. There was one more in my mind, but I can't remember what it was now. So, yeah, they were the two sort of good game weeks for me. Oh, that's what it was. Just really quickly, I don't know what game week it was, but Harry Kane got 2 goals and like an assist against Everton when they won 6-2. And I actually tried to captain Sterling, and I didn't.
Oh yeah,
and I didn't click
you
save.
lucked out, didn't you?
So Raheem Sterling was at home to Palace or something, and he had just been rested in the previous game. So it was like, right, Sterling captain locked in. Everyone captained him on Twitter. He got 2 points, and I didn't click save on Sterling, and I had Harry Kane away to Everton, and he had 15 points. So. Yeah, I felt really bad because even in my YouTube video, I said I was captaining Sterling, and I was like, "Oh, that was awkward." But yeah, it put me to like 4k in the rank. I was loving it.
And family, what about yours?
Go on, you go first.
So game weeks 26 and 29 stand out for me as being kind of key ones. So anyone who watches us will know that Edison trolled me for long periods of the season. I dislike that man a lot. And I decided late on in the season that I was going to have Lloris as my captain. And in game week 26 and game week 29, he saved a penalty in each game week. And that actually for me kind of, when it's your own team's keeper and captain saving a penalty that scores you like 10 points and 12 points in those game weeks, they were highlights for me. Highest scoring game week was 35. I got 98, which
that bench boost.
It was bench boost week. It filled me with utter kind of annoyance because it's 98. Who wants to end on 98? Like, couldn't somebody have done something else?
It's like Jay's I'm 10,001. That's another one of those.
It's just
Couldn't
so
someone
annoying,
get a few more points?
Yeah, it's like, you know, that was the week that Valerie missed a game and then came on for a 1 point cameo, wasn't it? And if he played in the other game, I'd have had 100. And it's just like, oh, it's so annoying, Valerie.
never happy as FPL managers, are we?
No, we never are.
I think my highest scoring one, actually the same, game week 35, played the bench boost, had a bench that read like this: Ryan 12, Højbjerg 4, Vardy 9, Duffy 8. There's a hell of a bench boost, and like in the same game week, there was obviously a lot of doubles. Doherty did really well, Trent did well, Jimenez captain not so good, but actually 105 points in that game week, so really pleased with that. But my favourite game week was the one before that, and this is one of my highlights of the whole season, was when I brought in Lucas Moura, when everybody was talking about bringing in Eriksen, and I got in Moura because I was just like, well, Spurs' squad is so thin, he has to play. And I remember you saying, he's going to play Moura, so do you want to go for Eriksen, who will probably get you a couple of assists, or Moura, who could be? And you said...
I said Eriksen will sit deeper.
You said Eriksen will sit deeper, Moura will go forward more. I was like, all right, I'll go Moura. 21 points.
I don't know why I didn't do it myself.
And it was one of those moments where we're obviously sitting in here in the living room, and you were up and cheering because Moore scored a hat trick, and I was up and cheering. Got the assist, didn't he? And Son got the assist, but I was up cheering because of the Lucas Moore 21 pointer. So
the kids thought we'd gone mental.
So yeah, so game week 34, and that moment, the Lucas Moore hat trick, I was well happy with that. Yeah, very happy.
There's no better feeling because I mentioned the Salah captain earlier when he got a hat trick, but he was a popular pick and a high-owned player. When you nail a player like Moura that hardly anyone has, there's no better feeling than that when you're getting points and nobody else is.
And it was that point in the season when I was just starting, what was it, game week 34. So I was just starting to get to the end and thinking, I'm a bit more punty in my mentality now. If that was game week 3 or 4, no way, I'd have been bought Eriksen in because I'd just been really risk averse. But just starting to get towards, I should take a few punts. And it paid off. I was very, very happy. Probably my best move of the season, actually. There wasn't many, as Simon will tell you. But
that's what
always play Spurs. Yes, absolutely.
Mine was game week 32 when I used my free hit, actually. I'm not sure I used my chips to their full potential, but I got 95 points that week, and it definitely kind of boosted what I would have had for that game week. I seem to remember that quite well. And I got in Edison. It was the double game week. So, I got 12 points from him. David Luiz got 8 points. I got Schlupp over Wan-Bissaka, who got me 7 points. And I got in Hudson-Odoi as well, which was the time when he played and got an assist. So I was a bit chuffed about that because, he was quite a good cheap differential. So I was quite chuffed with that, and Jimenez and Aguero as my captain up front. And in fact, I could have done even better because on the free hit I bought in Valerie, but I didn't actually play him. I played Duffy instead. So actually, if I had played Valerie and really considered my captaincy choice. Well, I mean, Aguero did quite well, but I might just go over the 100 as well. So I'm a bit like Sam. I was just just so close. I didn't quite make it, but that was definitely my best game week of the season for sure. Do we have any questions in the chat before carrying on with the...
Yes, we do. Just really quickly, Marcus L says thanks to all of us for all the work this season and for helping him win his mini league. So good job, Marcus.
Thanks for watching, Marcus.
Jeff Holt also thanks us all for the hard work, including family as well, of course. Thank you, all of us.
Thanks, Jeff.
Dylan just quickly says, what about your Torreira transfer, Sam? So I'm assuming you must have had a good...
Oh, Dylan, you had to bring that up.
Well done, Dylan.
Oh.
Surely that's got to fall into the decision of the season.
Yeah, that's a quality thing.
That's our next.
The season's on. I still don't know where that came from. And I will not know ever. Who brings in Lucas Torreira and then he gets the bicycle kick? Thanks for that, Dylan.
It might be the first ever goal that Arsenal have ever scored that I've celebrated.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, true.
You're over to the dark side now.
I quickly changed my mind and transferred him back out.
Yeah, well, he didn't play then the week after. I don't think so. It's the right thing. But yeah, right. That definitely goes into decision of the season category. That one.
So there was actually a super chat from Steve Wynyard again. So thank you, Steve. Thank you very much, bud. So this is a good question for Sam, actually. Just looking to next year, Sam. He wants to know, is there any Spurs player that you might kind of bring in and set and forget at the start of the season? Like, I know we don't have the fixtures yet, but he's saying, Kane's got this bad injury record, Son's very streaky, Ali's out of form, Eriksen's maybe not been at his best this year in terms of FPL points. So any Spurs players that you could see being in your Game Week 1 team?
That is a good question. I think well, starting with Son, I think for me, Son's been streaky this season purely for the fact that he's been flying halfway around the country every 5 minutes, or halfway around the world every 5 minutes. So for Son, I think next season where it is a bit more standard and he doesn't have the Asia Cup and the Asia Games and there's no kind of military service stuff hanging over him, I expect that we'll see him be more consistent and also play every week. I would expect to see Sonny playing a lot more often. I think it really depends what happens with Eriksen this summer. If Eriksen leaves... I would expect that we'll see a bit more out of Dele Alli than we have this season. But then I think for me, I'll I want a Spurs defender for the start of the season. Lloris has been great for me in goal towards the back end of the season while I've had him. But the wingers, again, Trippier has been really inconsistent, but Danny Rose has been absolutely superb. So if he stays at Spurs, I think he will play consistently next season. He's shown over the course of the season that he prefers him to Ben Davies. And it might mean that every third week he doesn't play, but then as long as your bench can cover that, the points that he will score over the course of the season, I think, warrant him being included. Or there's the likes of Vertonghen and Toby if he's still with us. But the problem we had with Spurs defenders last season is that they priced them all at 6, so it was impossible to choose between them. I don't think that will happen this season. I can't see that they'll all get priced in the same bracket. I think we'll have a bit more difference to choose from between them. Because they haven't scored consistently, and Trippier has been really off form of late. So, but yeah.
Just to chip in, I think that's a really, really hard question to answer for a number of reasons. One is I think I'm expecting Spurs to be really active this summer. I think you're going to go out there and really bolster the squad. You're being linked with Andre Gomez. You're being linked with players like Tielemans and people like that. So I think they're going to really bolster the squad. So there'll be lots of more options come the start of the season. The second reason is that...
Can they afford that with the stadium?
Yeah, so the reason... Yeah, because the reason we couldn't afford to sign anyone before is because we were paying for the new stadium and paying rent on Wembley, whereas obviously now the stadium is paid and we're no longer paying any rent. So there is a budget, like Evie's come out and said there's budget for new players. So there will be a strengthening in the team.
Cool.
So for sure you're going to sign some players. And secondly, you've got the shortest gap, I think, of all the Premier League teams out there, because you're going to obviously play on June the 1st. And then because you finish 4th, you've got the pre-qualification games to play in the Champions League. So the start of the season,
unless we win it.
Unless you win it, yeah, of course, unless you win it. But, so you will definitely have those pre-qualification games to play. So all right, assuming you have the pre-qualification games to play, it'll be really interesting to see what the Spurs fixtures look like, sort of first 5 or 6, because there'll be... Let's say there's going to be rotation that early on, but there might be, right? There might be. And also, if you win the Champions League, then don't you have to go to flipping Japan and play the Super Cup or whatever it is as well? There's all that kind of goes on around the start of the season, which for me immediately puts me a little bit off Spurs assets at the start of the season, even without seeing the fixtures.
And obviously Kane doesn't score in August, so...
And Kane doesn't score in August.
That's fine, you've got Llorente now.
Well, if we give him
a decision galore.
This is a genuine question from me, just on that, Lee. Do 4th place have to play those still for the English teams?
I don't think we do. I think Lee's got that wrong. I don't think there's any pre-qualifying for 4th.
Oh, really?
No, I think...
I genuinely was trying to think myself whether that was...
I didn't... I'm glad you've said that, Brett, because in my head I thought, I'm sure we don't have to... I'm sure it's done.
So the top 4 go straight in at the group stage?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, didn't know. All right, cool.
Yeah, and just looking, so the first Champions League game will be about the 17th of September. So that's the good thing about the opening few game weeks, is that there's maybe 3 or 4 game weeks before the Champions League starts where you kind of feel a little bit safer from the rotation. But that's a really good point, Lee, about the Super Cup, or whatever they call it, you know? If Tottenham go on to win it. When is that played?
Well, it's going to be 2 English teams.
November, December, isn't it?
November, December, yeah.
Oh, that's a bit later on in the season. Okay. All right. Well, completely ignore all the points I've just made on that.
but no, you are right, because it's going to be either Liverpool or Spurs, and it's going to be either Arsenal or Chelsea. So it's going to take out some of our fantasy assets, definitely. Whenever it is. It's something that we will need to consider.
Oh, did you say the Super League? Sorry.
Super Cup.
I don't know. I'm beginning to question life.
That's the winners of
We know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got confused. That's at like the start of the season, like during when the transfer window's open. I thought you were referring to the one where they get like the winners of like the North America, South America, Asia, and they go into and play that competition against best teams of every continent. The Club World Cup, whatever that is. That's in like November, December-ish, I think. But the Super Cup between the 2 teams, that's
yeah. So there's you're right.
That would give one of those 4 teams a small break in that window as well.
Yeah.
So there we go. Yeah, whichever one of those competitions it is that best suits my waffle. Let's go with
that. Yeah, you're right. I forgot. There's actually 2 games, isn't there? There's like the final, like a sort of like a community shield, isn't it, between the Europa League winner and the Champions League winner. Yeah, I forgot about that one as well. Yeah, okay, interesting.
So should we circle back to the decisions of the season award? Seeing as Sam touched upon, well, I think Sam was told what her decision of the season was. So, Jay, what was your decision of the season?
Well, there were some honourable mentions for me. One would be not bringing in Kane for game week 7 when everyone brought him in for, I think it was Huddersfield, and then he didn't do anything. Another would be getting Son out twice before he disappointed everyone. But most likely it has to be Laporte, just because that game week 25, if I had him for that, it would have been definitely him. But I saw what he did in that double game week and thought, you know what, he's a defender that does seem to like to pop up with a goal every now and again in one of the best defences in the league. Brought him in and he never disappointed, especially in some game weeks where I had really bad game weeks. He'd pop up and get a cheeky assist to Company. The amount of work Laporte had to do for that assist to Company in game week 37 was incredible. Company pretty much had a tap in. But yeah, Laporte has to be the one for me.
I would agree. I think he's brilliant.
My decision of the season has to be having Snodgrass and Anderson in the only 1 week where they did anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a niche decision.
That's problematic.
That was. I remember being like, this is probably one bat shizzle too far, but actually, that game week they went on to get 2 goals and assists between the pair of them, I think, and it was just like, wow, what have I done here? But then I think that was getting off of them again, almost immediately afterwards, which was the big decision. That okay. I could have sat here now and said, well, Anderson has looked great most of the season, stick with him, or maybe Snodgrass will get more game time now after that haul. And they didn't. They neither did. So actually getting off of them almost immediately after that, I think I sold Snodgrass the exact week afterwards, and then I had Anderson for 1 more week, I think, just based on transfers and being able to get rid of them. But yeah, definitely moving them on almost immediately after they did that probably has to be my decision this season. Kurt, what was yours?
Back quite a while ago, game week 17, I had a massive quandary. Son was at home against a out of form Burnley. And I thought, this is a good chance. It's a good chance for him. But on the other side, Hazard was playing against Brighton. And I think I'd gone looking back at last season where I'm pretty sure it was Hazard away against Brighton had torn them apart. And I was differing all the way throughout week about what I'd do. Ended up captaining Hazard. He got a goal and assist in a 2-1 win. And Heung-min Son got 1 point. So a massive turnaround of 25 points there difference. So yeah, quite the decision, and it probably helped me get inside, just outside 1.5 million. Without that, who knows?
Who knows? Sam, did you have another one picked out for yourself? Of the season?
I think, in terms of the one I remember most, apart from the Torreira bicycle kick, was when Man City played Watford, and I remember kind of going into that game feeling incredibly concerned that I didn't have Aguero, because everybody had Aguero and everybody was captaining him, and I was just sitting there thinking, I don't have Aguero and I can't captain him, so I'm going to captain Sterling and hope that Aguero does absolutely nothing. And I remember going out. I was out that night, wasn't I? I went out at half time and it was 0-0, and texting Lee and being like, what happened in the game? And just got this message back that was like, you don't have to remind me. And I was thinking but what? And that was the game that Sterling got a hat trick and I'd captained him. So I remember feeling like that was a huge green arrow, because although Sterling was a popular pick at that point, he was far less popular than Aguero and certainly a less popular captain pick. So it worked really well for being, especially because it was a game week that I was really kind of anxious about going into it because of the Aguero bandwagon that was going on. So much so that I nearly took a 4-point hit to have Aguero for that week to captain him. So it kind of, all the stars aligned, I suppose, in that one.
Yeah, I was just to add to that, I was amazed that Sterling never got above 24-25% ownership in this entire season. He's had such a good year, and he's been so great for the points, and he's got so many different avenues to points that in a lot of the time this season he's been a differential, and that feels unbelievable to me.
Particularly if he captained, he was a real differential captain.
Absolutely. I think I've talked about my Lucas Moura thing. I was very pleased with that. But one of my other good decisions was I was transfixed by the whole Jose Mourinho saga when that was all kicking off, right? And I just felt like United were having such a bad year, and I was so convinced that Mourinho was the problem. So that when it was all on the training ground about him and Pogba, and the fact that Pogba was putting stuff on Instagram, and there was this really weird video of Jose Mourinho being really passive aggressive towards him on the training pitch, and Pogba saying, like, turn around and say, what? What are you talking to me? And it just felt like there was something so toxic about that situation that as soon as you took Mourinho out of it, I just felt that Pogba was just going to step up and go, I told you it was him that was a problem, not me. So as soon as Mourinho got sacked, Pogba was like in straight away for me. Absolutely in. That first week. And up until then, this season, he'd really not shown much to suggest that he should be in our FPL teams. But I just got him in, and he got something like, I don't know, back-to-back 15 pointers over the next few weeks. And he's obviously well documented. He sort of trailed off a bit towards the end of this season. But I felt like that was a good decision that I made, because I just felt like just removing Mourinho from that situation, Pogba's character dictated that he wanted to show everybody that Mourinho was the issue. Believe me, it wasn't me. It's that sort of thing. So yes, getting Pogba in when Mourinho was out was a good decision.
Yeah.
Cool. And Brett?
Yeah, just to add to that, Lee, it was a 13-pointer, a 15-pointer, and an 18-pointer, all back-to-back. So
just
went
on a rampage.
46 points in 3 game weeks, and that 46, if you get 50 points in 3 game weeks, that's a massive jump than what you would have had from a player that blanked 3 times, for example. Trying to think of good decisions. I can't think of many for me, actually. I've had a decent season, but the first one was obviously not clicking save for to Captain Sterling.
Was that a decision, was it?
So I just need to be more like Brett next season and just, forget to click save.
Yeah, exactly. that paid dividends. Went up to 4K on that bad boy. On the wild card in game week 34 or whatever it was, obviously Spurs had Huddersfield at home, and I went for 0.2% owned Kyle Walker-Peters, and he got me a clean sheet, 7 points.
Beautiful.
And he actually, I think, he passed it to Ericsson for an assist, and Ericsson hit the post. So I almost got an assist from Kyle Walker-Peters, which would have been epic. Obviously, I had Matt Doherty at 4.4 million in game week 4, so that was a good decision. The best decision for me, I was just looking. Obviously, Trent Alexander-Arnold got injured halfway, middle of the season. He was out for about 5 game weeks, but I held on to him through the injury. And then on his first full start back, he got 18 points, a hat trick of assists. So I think my decision to keep Trent through all the injury was probably the best decision of the season for me.
That was my favourite day of the season, by the way. We went to that Watford game, didn't we, at Anfield?
We did,
we dumped the kids we left the kids with the grandparents. And we had a little overnighter up in Liverpool. And not only did I enjoy the game because we won 5-0 and we were really, really good, but Trent was absolutely on fire that day, wasn't he? Absolutely on fire. 3 assists, sensational stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. Just while we're on that then, I'll do player of the season, but instead of going into lots of detail, maybe just literally give me a 1-word answer. So, Jay, player of the season.
Sorry, it's a 3-word answer, and it would be Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Okay, fair enough. Kurt?
Mane.
Mine's Robertson. Brett?
So this is from an FPL perspective, right?
Yep.
Okay, I'll go Salah for me.
Okay. Lee?
Raul Jimenez for me.
Oh, Sam?
Oh, well, I was going to go Jimenez too. I feel like I should say someone else now.
Go on, you have Jimenez, and I'll stick with Kurt. I'll go Mane. I think golden boot with no penalties. I think he's been sensational.
Okay.
Cool. I'd like to really cover this one in terms of our own teams, and that's the stroke of luck of the season. So I think Brett's pretty much covered his.
You've got that, Brett.
I think he's won that award again. But what about you, family? Did you have any?
I know what mine
game
is.
weeks? where
Well,
you think
you've
you
had
had a
absolutely
massive
loads.
stroke of luck?
I know what mine is. Mine is double game week 35 when I captained Son, who didn't start.
Mm-hmm.
Was it double game week? Yeah, it was. Captain Son, who didn't start. And my vice captain was on Duffy.
Right.
And I remember sitting there during that Spurs game when Moura got his hat trick, going, "Don't come on, don't come on, don't come on, please don't come on." And then he came on, and I was like, "Oh!" And I was in such a shock. Hence why I went mental when he got an assist.
Yeah.
I'm being really like, "Oh, Duffy, it's gonna be a nightmare because he's definitely gonna perform." And then, of course, didn't. And so for me, like, that was a massive stroke of luck. Sonny coming on for those 4 minutes and getting an assist.
Yeah.
Massive stroke of luck.
I feel like your answer to every question that Nim asks you could be the Torreira free kick. I feel like that's every question. Like your favourite moment, but the luckiest
That wasn't
moment,
lucky. That was genius.
Oh, do me a favour. I genuinely, well, people that tune in regularly to our live streams will know that I'm very, very unlucky. I'm very unlucky,
here we go. Some more violins in the live stream.
Me too.
And so can I turn the question on its head? I want to be a bit controversial and talk about one of the unluckiest moments that I've had this season, because Sam has all the luck, not me. But there was a moment, and I've researched this because it sticks in my head, so I even know what game week it was. Game week 26. I had Said Kolasinac for Arsenal away at Huddersfield, and Arsenal were cruising.
Sam's luckiest moment was an Arsenal play, and your unluckiest was an Arsenal play.
It all revolves around Arsenal. And Said Kolasinac and Arsenal were cruising to an away clean sheet at Huddersfield.
Oh, I know what you're
He'd
going to
even
say.
got an assist. He'd even got an assist, so he was due for an assist, a clean sheet, and probably some baps. I'm looking at a 13-pointer. I've turned Soccer Saturday off. I've gone to make a cup of tea. Everything's fine. He's 13 points in the bag. I come back. Huddersfield have scored. Not only have they scored, who scored it? It was a Kolasinac own goal. If you remember?
Right.
Absolute nightmare. So I can't think of many lucky moments, but that was definitely a really unlucky moment. It's a horrific moment.
I remember my luckiest moment was game week 5. I actually played Mendy, and it was just around that injury news, and we were all like, "Will he? Won't he play?" And so I played him, and I had Doherty first on the bench, and I was like, I'm not sure whether I should be playing Doherty or not, and so I was kind of umming and ahhing between the two. But I played Mendy, and he didn't play. And so Doherty came in off my bench with a goal, a clean sheet, and 3 bonus points for 12 points. So thankfully he was first on my bench, because obviously if I'd had anyone else to come in for Mendy, it wouldn't have been great at all. But I definitely remember that that was one that I kind of like, I'd been umming and ahhing about all week, like which one I should go with. And then went with the, like Lee, I was really unlucky. I decided to go with, I went with Mendy. But, you know, I was so unlucky he didn't play. Thankfully, Doherty came in off the bench. So that was definitely my lucky moment. What about you, Kurt?
Well, the obvious one, which I did have written down, is the triple captain scenario last game week of the season. Shaqiri not playing, which I saw the first substitution. I wasn't sure who'd come on, and I saw Shaqiri, and I saw Robertson coming off. So I thought, it's all right, Shaqiri's not going to come off. Saw Wijnaldum was walking off. I thought, oh no. And they gave a bit of game time to Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, so I celebrated that.
Nice.
But have to pay homage to another one of my favourite guests this season, when I had Jeffrey Schlupp pop out of the globe box for my captaincy.
Yes, yes.
And he somehow managed to get 7 points.
Yeah.
So probably
that's why I
massive
got him
stroke
in
of
my
luck
free
there.
hit team. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, got 7 points, and my vice captain Aguero scoring only 5. So it just about shows how good Aguero is. Not as good as Jeffrey Schlupp.
There it is.
7 points.
There it is.
Very lucky.
Leave Aguero alone. So, Jay, what about you? What was your luckiest moment?
Well, I was going to go with getting rid of Son before game week 37, because that was just based on the form I'd seen him in. But then to not be involved with that -2 that everyone else seemed to have was probably pretty lucky. But I do remember captain pretty similar to Brett's, but I'm not sure if it was Aguero and Sterling or vice versa. But I was going
to say this one, Jay, for you.
I captained one of them all week, then decided last minute to change. But as my work has terrible reception, it didn't register on my phone. And then when I go to check the points after seeing whichever Man City player had scored and thinking, damn it, I picked the wrong one, I'd actually got the right one as captain. So I was quite
it's all
happy with
lies,
that.
really. It just tells us he's captaining one person, so
Well, look,
that we
I
don't.
wanted to beat Brett.
If we copy him,
I
then
was
he does something
devastated.
different.
It was Man City against Fulham, it was, and Aguero had scored, and I was like, yes, I'm gaining on Jay now. He's got Sterling captained, and then he dropped the ball, and he was like, oh, actually, I forgot it didn't go through. So he had my captain covered. It's just like, oh.
Yeah, I just didn't want you to pick the other captain. That was it.
So jammy. Do we have any more questions in the chat?
There's one from Brian. Hey, Brian. He wants to know: are we happy to see the back of Hazard now from an FPL perspective? What do we think with Hazard leaving? Is that a good thing for us, family? What do you reckon?
I think it might be, because those Chelsea players that are going to play in his place, if they get this ban that they've currently got, then he's going to be...
It's happening, right? The ban is...
Well, they're going to the Court of Arbitration, aren't they?
I think it's already come back, and they've upheld it. I think so, yeah.
No, they've had one appeal that's come back already, and they've said no.
Sam's right.
Now they're going to the Court of Arbitration.
Oh, really? Okay, fair enough.
And apparently their reasoning is that everyone else that's had a ban has had one window before the ban comes in. So they basically want the summer window and then 2 bans following that. I think that's what they're hoping for. So if that stays in place and Hazard leaves, then for us as fantasy managers, if you want to go Chelsea, that means surely you've got some nice cheap, the likes of Ruben Loftus-Cheek, or well, maybe not actually because of the injury, but Hudson-Odoi, those sorts of players that potentially add you in a nice player that's affordable alongside the likes of Sterling and all of those other expensive ones. Because for me, that was the issue with Hazard this season, is that I just couldn't afford to have him alongside all of these other guys that were so expensive.
I'm gonna disagree with you. I think it'd be a shame to lose him. I genuinely do. I think we want to see the best players in the Premier League, and he is undoubtedly one of the best players about. It'll be a massive loss for Chelsea. It's the first thing to say, and I do agree with you. It will open up doors for other players to come in and do really well. I was hoping to see something from Callum Hudson-Odoi, but it looks like he's done his cruciate ligament, so he's out for ages. So I think it's a shame we're going to lose him. He's one of those players. He's a mercurial FPL player. He's one of those players that gets us talking every week. But but whether he's being a troll or whether he's smashing it or whether he's everyone's captain or whatever, I think he's been great for FPL. It'd be a shame to see him go, but I do think he's going to go.
Yeah, that's a good point. That
238 points this season, and he's still considered a troll. Second highest point scorer, only behind Salah.
Yeah, I mean, my initial reaction is it's one less headache, and I think, great, I haven't got to stress about another player. However, I guess to back up Lee's point, it is like maybe it makes it easier for everyone to have the midfield now. Maybe there's like a template that forms easily because there's no Hazard to kind of cause the headache about who to have. So now it's almost like Mane, Salah, and Sterling are a little bit easier to own, maybe, because Hazard's not there to cause us. You can't really own all 4, for example, So it does offer that bit of flexibility then that everyone can't own the same players.
One argument for it is, sorry to butt in, but Jorginho started the season at 5 million, went down to 4.6, is the second penalty taker behind Hazard. If Hazard goes, Jorginho doesn't rise too much in price, that could be a massive signing for anyone, because penalties galore.
Right? Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking VAR is going to make midfield much more interesting anyway. I think we're going to have to choose what we would maybe consider as boring picks, in the past. And I think Salah could be reclassified as a forward next season, which might take him out of that midfield spot as well. So I don't think it's maybe going to be quite as cut and dry as just saying because Hazard's gone, we know exactly who we're going to have now. I don't necessarily think it's going to be quite like that. I think there will be plenty of people that will come up, and we'll hopefully get some new players from abroad, and new players getting signed by some of the bigger clubs. So yeah, I mean, I've had a love-hate relationship with Hazard since he arrived in the Premier League. So I'm quite happy to. I think I feel happier not having to worry about him, if I'm honest, and not having the money to own him and things like that. So yeah, definitely.
What do you guys make of Pulisic coming into Chelsea? So he's a guy they've got in a few months back, right?
Already, yeah.
I don't think he's a direct replacement for Hazard. I'm pretty sure he's not. He's a bit more central, I think. But do you think he's going to be an FPL asset when he comes onto the radar?
Does he take penalties?
I mean, the fact is, Dortmund have got rid of him because they've got Sancho, which just makes me feel like he's kind of the second best option for Dortmund. He's coming into a Chelsea side that I'm not sure I like the look of without Hazard in, to be fair. Like, Hazard has been their main player for a long time. And I look at that team now, and yes, there are some budget options there, but I haven't liked that Chelsea midfield and side all season, apart from maybe a Ruben Loftus-Cheeks as enablers. And now they've lost Hazard. Do I like that team anymore? Probably not. It depends, of course, if they do get to make signings this summer, though. If they get to make some good signings this summer and then the ban comes in, then I might change my mind. But I think for me, Chelsea will be a bit of a no-go just until I see him play.
They've got so many people out on loan, haven't they, that they can call back? Like Batshuayi and those sorts of players that are decent options. That
you can see him bringing back Mason Mount, right? Mason Mount, like in last night's Championship semi-final playoff, was phenomenal. Yeah, I can see him getting recalled and getting some game time. But I think you're right. Jay's hit the nail on the head. People like Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and when I think I said earlier that Callum Hudson-Odoi's got the cruciate ligament. I think it's Loftus-Cheek, wasn't it, that done it yesterday?
Yeah,
so Callum Hudson. So CHO's out for a while. RLC's out for a while.
There's far too many initials, yeah.
So all of these really important players for Chelsea not going to be there for possibly a good chunk of the start of next season. Hazard off. Pulisic coming in, but like I say, I think he's a bit more central. So we've got him, Barkley, Kovacic, Jorginho, Kante, all these centre midfielders. I'm totally with Jay. I think Chelsea could have a really tough season next season. There's no one really on my Chelsea radar, unless the fixtures are like unbelievable going into the beginning of next season. I'm not going to be jumping on them. I really want to see how they settle.
Not even if Giroud plays.
No,
let's move on.
Let's move on. The silence told you everything you needed to know about that one.
Well, yeah, what can I say? Okay, Elite FPL would like to know what has been our favourite live stream moment this season. So, we spoke on separate streams, but it'd still be interesting to know what your guys' favourite live stream moment was, Lee and Sam.
I think we probably share the same one.
On our live streams?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I know what you're going to say. So, yeah, tell the story.
So Jeffrey's in. Jeffers, good old Jeffers. It was my birthday in October. And bless Jeffrey. I don't know why I keep calling you Jeffrey at the moment, Jeffers. I just keep calling him Jeffrey. Decided that he would rally all of our like hardcore in-laws, the guys that have been there since the beginning. And they super chatted us enough money that I could buy the third shirt that I wanted, which was just wonderful, wasn't it?
It was a great moment. We just genuinely didn't expect it. We've never met these people, might not ever meet these people, and it was just an awesome moment. And I think it was one of those where I think the FPL community on Twitter in particular has been a bit up and down this year. Not that I've been part of it for that long, but there's a bit of bad feeling sometimes and a bit of whatever. But that moment for me was just like, oh, actually, this is a really awesome community with some really nice people that want to do nice things. So, and we genuinely love being part of it. It's absolutely sensational. So that for me, you're spot on. That was my live stream highlight.
Yeah, it was one of those things that you could never plan for. It was just so out of the blue. Like it took us completely by surprise, and it was something that we would never have anticipated or expected them to do. It was just such a lovely thing that happened that I think that will always be my favourite live stream moment. I can't think of anything that could ever happen in the future that could.
Yeah. So thank you, Jeff.
That. Yeah.
I thought when one of your patrons or patrons, when they donated that prize to the charity as well, I thought that was really lovely.
Yeah.
That was an equally nice touch. Yeah, really nice thing to do. That was Gareth Edser, who was our manager of the month, I think.
April
or March. I'm going to say March, I think, because April was Tracy, wasn't it? It's Tracy, and I think Gareth was in March.
You're right.
Yeah, Frank was in February.
Yeah.
And it was a really nice thing to do. Yeah, we had like a kit bag voucher that we were going to give him. And he was just like, I really want to donate it to Suge's charity. So Suge from Planet FPL podcast was running the marathon, and he was donating all the money that he was raising to Haven House Children's Hospice.
Yeah.
So, and it was just a really nice moment. So, I think you're spot on. And again, another one of those moments that makes you think this is a genuinely really nice community with really nice people in it. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, I was just going to look probably awful in comparison now. But Jay, what was your favourite stream moment?
Well, first of all, Jeffers, my birthday's December 4th. But it is kind of connected to Jeffers as well. But it's Kurt's answers to some of Jeffers' random questions. Just some of the things he comes out with. Sometimes I'm like, oh no.
No,
he's actually saying it. He's doing it again.
You can see the colour drain from my face.
It's like mute. Where's the mute button? There we
go. Yeah, definitely. What's yours, Kurt?
First of all, apologies for those answers. No, my mind just sometimes wanders. It takes a couple of minutes before I reel it back in. I think an easy one would be the globe box and having the FPL Dare styled stream. But I think also the first ever Wildcat stream is probably service. First of all.
It's Mrs. J.
Hey, Mrs. J.
Yes. Distracted.
Hi.
But
that's my favourite.
That is service.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. There we go. Easy choice. But no, the first ever Wildcat stream, because if we watch back on it, I haven't yet watched back on it. I'm planning to do so. Watch back a lot of them at some point after this stream. I remember it being quite nerve-wracking. It felt quite disjointed, like there was no real flow with it. Not to take anything, against all four of us, but you look at the streams now and how much you've bonded, the people you've met. It's wild to think how the Wildcats has gone for a year, and it's quite nice to look back. I
remember Jay being like really nervous that the technology was just going to fail completely in that first week.
It was going to fail. It did fail. It failed so much.
We covered so much up you would not believe. Brett, what about you? What was your favourite?
It's going to sound obvious because obviously Kurt's already mentioned it, but having Dare on the stream was really cool.
Oh, your bromance, yeah.
Yeah, obviously, being a big fan of his channel, and it was great to get him on here.
Proper fan moment for Brett.
Yeah.
He's in the chat right now, by the way. Dare's in the chat.
Woo!
Yes, he is. Yes, legend.
Awkward now, are we?
But no, just with the glow box, obviously seeing it live and our reaction to Schlupp getting pulled out for Kurt. And when I screenshotted that, it was just the epitome of just joy. Like we were all just laughing, and that was a great moment for me, obviously. So I think that's probably my favourite.
I've got two. So my first is obviously the first ever Wildcat stream, because it was I guess an idea I had just sat in my room one day, and I just thought, you know what, this is something that's never been done before. I don't even know if I can do it, but I want to find somebody. I want to find a group of people. I want to try and do this. Why not? It's definitely something coming from a gaming background that I thought the FPL world was missing, and I just wanted to, I guess, bring the community together. Like Lee was saying, that we have such a great community, and it had been so fractured apart. It was kind of happening towards the end of last season as well, I'd noticed. And so I just thought the Wildcats could be somewhere where everyone could gather. We could have lots of really great guests, and it would just make everybody feel included and a part of the show. So that was definitely a massive highlight for me. So the first one was scary as anything, but definitely a favourite moment. But one of my funniest ones has to be doing our draft live stream and me nabbing Salah first.
I was going to mention that actually. Yeah, the quickest transfer ever.
It was like the quickest draft transfer ever. Like it was like a whip it out of the gates. I was like, and then everyone in the chat was persuading me to get Hazard. Remember, and I was going, I don't know whether I should or not. Well, just so everyone knows, I did win the draft league by 284 points this season.
Everyone else gave up, I'm sure. I gave up long ago.
Well, I was chasing till the end. I was trying some ridiculous moves.
Jay was second, 284 points behind me. And it was
Don't
Brett,
say the
and
number
it was
280 something. That's the second time I've got that as like I've just missed out on something by 280 odd points.
But yeah, that was definitely a great moment. I just remember just seeing Salah's name and not even thinking. I was just like, click, yes.
I remember seeing Nim like 2 points up in draft, and I Googled to see if you could do more than a triple up, like have more than 3 players.
Right.
And so every week I was just doing like a sextuple of players against Huddersfield. So 5 at the back, and then the goalkeeper, just trying to see if I can get clean sheets. But it just never seemed to work. So
it was a great try though. It was a great try. Cool. And now Jeff did send me 2 questions. The other was good, but I like this one more. So can we just have one great word to describe Jeffers, please? Mine is fabulous. So Jay, one word to describe Jeffers.
I really wanted to, but if I've got to go with one, it has to be marketing, because he came up with the flock for me. So much appreciated, Jeff.
True. What about you, family?
I would say sneaky, because the way that he organised that shirt for you was brilliant, but it was sneaky. So I'd say sneaky.
And poet for me.
Loves a little poem, doesn't he?
He's a poet.
Yes, loves a little poem. Yes, right those.
Okay, Brett.
I would say supportive.
Yeah. Nice. And Kurt. Are you going to say Kim Jong-un?
It's not a silly answer. Welcome.
Where's the mute button?
I would say welcomed, because quite often it's in the streams or in whatever leagues or the group chats. It's quite a welcomed break whenever he posts something. It's quite nice.
Corner. Yeah, it's always good fun.
Back for next season.
I'm pretty sure some people come on you and like, oh, they're not talking FPL. What are they talking about? We're like, Jeffers Corner's our favourite bit. You get to have a good chinwag about random stuff. Cool. Do we have another question in the chat, and then we'll wrap up?
Do we have a question? I think we're about out, to be honest, Nim.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah, go for it, bud.
Who's first on your team sheet then for next season?
Yeah, that was a good one.
That is a tough one.
And I'm going to say, don't say and Mane and those. Let's come up with something a bit more kind of
differential.
Shall we say no Liverpool then?
No Liverpool, no
I was
City.
Say Trent.
I feel like obviously I've had a little play around writing a team down for me. I think Luca Digne, to be honest, is probably going to be one of the first players on my team. Like, if we're not going for the obvious ones, just looking at his stats this year, and obviously the way Everton ended the season, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but maybe like 7 or 8 clean sheets in the last 10 or something ridiculous like that. Clean sheets against the big teams. And an interesting stat I picked up about him was obviously Trent Alexander-Arnold, for example. He's made his name this year getting like 13 assists, and a lot of that came at the end of the season. And a lot of Trent's assists have been from crosses. And Trent has made about 200 crosses this year, which is, I think the third most, maybe the second. Luca Digne only has about, I think, 4 assists to his name this season, but he's crossed the ball 280 times. And from a defender, I think he's created the most chances by about 20. I think he had about 70 chances created. So it's almost like he's underachieved, because obviously he hasn't got the likes of Salah and Mane finishing the chances. But Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, they are players that do like to head the ball. So yeah, Luca Digne, his stats have been great this year, and I think he's another player that I benched and transferred out too many times. Maybe I should just set and forget with him. So avoiding the obvious players, I think Digne could be one of the players in my team.
Remind me there, because I got Digne in my wild card, and another one that I was persuaded to get rid of in the double game week, because everyone was like, he doesn't have a double game week, why are you keeping hold of him? I'm like, but I bought him in my wild card for a reason. I've done all this, I've done all this research. This is the reason why I bought him. And they were like, well, if you're going to bench boost, you can't possibly have a single game week player, especially against Man United, on your bench.
I do agree with you though, Brett. I do think Everton are going to be a really interesting side next season, because I'm also interested to see what they do in the off season as well. It's going to be Marco Silva's second or third season. Second. So it's going to be it's kind of like crunch time for him now. It's a season where he's had a season to get this team together, a couple of windows to get the players in he wants. He's got to start performing and start delivering, and he needs to get Everton back up to where the fans expect them to be, which is sort of the 5th, 6th, 7th sort of spots. I'd be really interested to see whether they do go out and buy a big centre forward, because Cenk Tosun is clearly rubbish, right? So if they go out and they buy somebody half decent who's a target man, then Luca Digne absolutely becomes an option. Although I'm kind of interested to see, again, sorry, I keep cutting your earbud out, sorry. I'm really interested to see in pre-season how Everton's set up, because Silva, I think, quite likes to be a bit more of a total football sort of manager, a bit like he likes his Richarlisons and his Walcotts and his stuff. But every now and again, you do need to just be a bit more direct. So if they come up with somebody and they go out and sign somebody who's a Cenk Tosun sort of player, but better, then Luca Digne is definitely an option. Definitely an option. And I also think, so to answer my own question, Siggy is going to be probably one of the first on my team sheet, because, sorry, Jay, because not only, as Kurt said before, he was in the FPL Team of the Year, which no one was expecting, I think, or no one was calling that. But since Silva's changed that system and put him in his preferred number 10 spot, he's been absolutely blinding, isn't he? Absolutely blinding. Is he on pens as well, Siggy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's another reason to get him. So for me, Siggy's absolutely on the radar for Game Week 1, yeah.
Let's just hope, though, that he has a season more like this season and 16-17 and not the one he had previous to that. Sorry. Yeah, because he dipped in 17-18, didn't he? Where he didn't do anywhere near as well.
And that was it.
Yeah.
So you got to hope he kind of sticks with that form again and doesn't dip. Mine would possibly be Milivojevic if Zaha stays, but I believe he's requested to leave. So I think that might have a big impact on whether Milivojevic is still, a big option, because I think a lot of the penalties have possibly come, from Zaha, really, for Milivojevic. I would like to see Zaha at Arsenal, believe it or not, but I don't know if we'll get him.
Maybe the Champions League, you might.
Yeah, possibly. I don't think that's going to happen either, but
that would be a classic Arsenal signing, by the way. You desperately need a defender and you go out and buy a pacey winger. It's a bit like Denis Suarez, wasn't it? You desperately needed a centre half and you went and bought a floppy head creative midfielder. So that's such an Arsenal sign. I loved it.
It was terrible. Shocking. I've been saying since we got him, I'm like, what was the point of that transfer? Seriously. No, we definitely need to invest more midfield and defence before anything else. But like you said, it is a very Arsenal move, and I think it might be a case of this season trying to get hold of him maybe before another club can get hold of him. Spurs are spending money.
I don't think we're back in. I don't think we're back in for him this time. I'll be surprised if we are. We don't need Zaha. We need another striker, and we need. There's other positions we need. We need Tielemans.
He's great as well.
Who will be the first name on my team sheet?
Yeah, I was going to say Spurs. I might consider him as well as my first.
Sorry, Jay.
Who was third on your list, Jay?
Fortunately, I do have a list.
Go on, Jay.
Well, now it's got to be Jota, because I'm hoping he won't go up too much in price, because, of course, he didn't start the season off too great. Everyone was touting him at the beginning, and he didn't do much. And then near the end, he's been absolutely fantastic. So I'm hoping he doesn't get too high a price rise, and then it might be Diogo Jota.
Or Tielemans or Sigurdsson.
Yeah.
Or...
Or Digne.
Who was fourth on your list, Jay?
I didn't have any more, so I'm happy Nim came to me.
Kurt. First name on the team, Salah.
This is the weird part wherever we've done this in the past. And I look at the list I have or the players I have, and I think the fact that none of my players have been mentioned yet is probably the reason I'm about 1.5 million behind everyone else. But my first name on the team sheet in a draft or whatever is Aubameyang. I think he's taken and scored 4 penalties, missed 1, I believe, this season. And he's, I saw some people in the chat saying he's not had a very good season, but I think he's had quite a good season. I think he's been very, very good. And
I'll be a Golden Boot winner and not have a good season.
Exactly, 22 goals, 7 assists in your first season, 205 points. If he gets penalties next season and takes them, it's only going to get better with VAR. I just think Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, I don't know what I tried to say his full name. I think he'll be a player this season.
Alba,
yeah. I did that myself.
I meant to check actually earlier on today what our Golden Boot picks were in our first video, and I'm pretty sure mine was Aubameyang, but I have to check it back and stick it in our comments below, so you guys will know if any of us got it right or not. I think Jay probably would have gone Salah though, just off of gut pick. But you, Brett, first name on team sheet?
Yeah, obviously I've mentioned Luca Digne already. So yeah, that was my
just
pick.
Is it just Digne?
Yeah, I mean, we're avoiding the obvious ones. I mean, I haven't owned Aguero enough this season. You know, he's always the most stressful player not to own.
You've never owned him enough.
I haven't. So I'd like to say Aguero will definitely be in my team next year. You know, from the first game week. We've got Brian in the chat mentioning Ender Stevens from Sheffield United, who will probably start at 4.5 million. Could be next season's Matt Doherty. 4 goals and 7 assists as a fullback this year in the Championship. So
Kurt's got something to say about that.
There will not be one Sheffield United player in my team. Game week 1, game week 38.
Are you sure you want to go to Kurt after just saying Sheffield United?
No.
just now. Cool. Okay. Well, we'll wrap it up there with the polls. But before we do that, and so Jay has a second to refresh, we would just like to say congratulations to Joshua London, who has won our league, and so he will be getting our hard-earned cash for the charity of his choice. So if anyone knows Joshua at all, if Joshua's watching, do get in touch with any of us on Twitter and we'll get that sorted for you. Just tell us who we need to get it off to and we'll get that sorted. So thank you everyone who has supported us this season, watched us, followed us, shared all of our content. We are so grateful. It just wouldn't be the same without you guys, and it's because you guys that we keep making it. I'm sure that's the same for family as well. We've been humbled, I guess, by the amount of love and support we've had as streamers this season, and we're all very much looking forward to doing it all over again for you guys next season. All the laughs, the heartaches and the tears, and all the happy moments and the sad moments. So thank you from me, and thanks to family for joining us. It's been great to finally have you on live. So it's been really good. And Jay, the polls.
Okay.
Who won the awards in the polls?
So we start with favourite FPL player of the season. We had Aguero, Robertson, Salah, Jimenez and Laporte in the running. And it was a tie between Robertson and Jimenez for favourite FPL player of the season.
Can I really quickly say I didn't own Robertson once this entire season? I would love to see how many percent of managers didn't have him. I didn't own him for 1 game week, which is pretty mental.
That is pretty mental.
I know. I'd love to see the percent of managers that didn't have him.
We then go on to surprise FPL player of the season. and it's a bit of a two horse race here. But Trent Alexander-Arnold wins. Ryan Fraser came second. You got 59% for Trent and 31% for Ryan Fraser. Then the only other player to get any votes is Yuri Tillemans with 9%. We then got Troll FPL Player of the Season, and the resounding winner with 68% is Felipe Anderson. Hazard is there with 9%, so is Son. Callum Wilson getting 13%. Premium FPL Player of the Season.
It's not enough, is it, Lee? It's not enough.
Definitely not.
Premium FPL Player of the Season, 59% of the votes going to Sadio Mane, 31% to Raheem Sterling, Aubameyang getting 9%, Mohamed Salah getting no votes at all.
Ooh,
Wow.
And then Budget Enabler, which was given to us by Family. Aaron Wan-Bissaka has won with 72% of the vote. Matt Doherty getting 18%, Ryan Fraser getting 9%, and then Ashley Barnes and Victor Camarasa getting nothing.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so that is it, guys. Thank you so much, as Nim has already said, for all the support this season. Thank you to Family for joining us on our last stream of the season. It's been a pleasure having you on. And make sure to subscribe so you're ready to see all the content from not just us, but Family next season. Catch you guys later.